You can agree to disagree. And that was actually the claim of how to be in the world. Yeah. And I think because these are the specifics, the rulings, etc., are secondary or tertiary. The first aspect is actually how are you going to live in the world and on what basis. So that for me, that's the most important thing to explore initially before I get into the specifics.
So I typically say the righteous path, which is truth, love, compassion, contentment, and humility. Any of those you disagree with?
So it's not about because what you've done is you've given a name to this path, and then you've gone to the specifics of it. Yeah. What I'm interested actually in is where did you get this path from?
Why does that matter?
Because it matters. I'll tell you why. If everyone were to come and say, I'm following let's use the same label, righteous path, but actually everyone brought something slightly different. Yeah. Can we accept everyone's claim to be following the righteous path to be okay?
Well, that's why I asked if there's anything that you disagree with.
No.
If there was something that you disagree with, if someone came up to me and they claimed the righteous path, and one of the things that they mentioned in the righteous path was pride and anger, I would then say these two things I disagree with. Everything else I agree with, but these two things I disagree with, and then we could have a conversation from there. Asking them their authority or where they got it from is irrelevant because that's what they believe and that's what they think.
Okay, so let's sort of delve into that a little bit more. So if somebody does come and they do say part of their path is anger and whatever else negative thing you're suggesting.
Yeah, the negative part, the self-worship path is lust, anger, greed, attachment.
Say if somebody comes with those exact things, lust, anger, greed, pride, whatever it is, and they say this is my path, this is the righteous path, in my opinion. What do you have any way to establish for them that that's not the path?
Yeah.
How would you do that?
Common sense and consensus. So I would say, how many people have you spoken to that agree that is a righteous? Because righteous has a specific meaning to it. It's not. You can't have righteousness with anger, lust, greed, attachment, or pride. They don't exist together. So I would then ask him, how many people have you spoken to that agree that that's righteous? And if they say nobody, then that will show them that, I can't tell them what to think, but that will show them that they need to self-reflect.
So I appreciate that you're saying that you can't tell them what to think. I think the problem here is that you're democratizing righteousness. You're making what is right and what is wrong a democratic process.
No, I'm not. I'm saying it's common sense.
Yeah, I understand.
If the righteous path that I mentioned, truth, love, compassion, contentment, humility, do you have any issues with any of those I said?
But this is like I said, before we get onto the specifics, the first thing I need to understand is, because we're talking about two aspects, for me anyway, I don't know for you, because I just believe in this life, I believe in a life after this life as well.
The whole point of me coming onto your show originally was to ask the question about whether you think there is anything, because I believe that there's things called fake Muslims. There's people who profess to be Muslim, but they don't live like a Muslim. That was the whole point, but then I was only allowed to ask one question, so I didn't want to go down into that rabbit hole and take more time up. So that was the main issue. I was there, but then you guys asked me to only have one question, and then the question I asked was about what did I say exactly? I can't remember.
Seal of the Prophets?
I think we came to that afterwards, but I think it was about belief. Yeah, it was the fact that Islam is becoming a belief-based religion rather than a deen, which is a way of living.
Sure, I remember now.
Yeah.
So again,
that was my original
I understand.
thing. So
I understand.
For you to bring it back to me about my own beliefs is quite reflective and doesn't actually answer any questions.
So I'll tell you why it's important for me, because one of the things you said is that because you're talking about this path that you say is righteous. This is something that you're saying, right? And then you give me the specifics of the path. But before I even get to the specifics of the path, I need to know on what is your basis for making this or asserting this claim that this is the righteous path. For me, it's a rational process of I'm going to accept what this person is saying to me.
Common sense.
Okay, that's fine. So you gave two things. One thing you said was common sense. The second thing you said was you would ask consensus.
Yeah.
You'd ask the number of people, and if the majority of them said this is the right way, then that would be the right.
If they agree, like I asked you, is there anything out of those five things that I mentioned? Is there anything you disagree with? Because then I can reflect on that, and I could then think, okay, maybe I need to word that differently, or maybe I need to focus on something else more than that.
I understand. So for me, as an approach, just as a foundational level approach, there is a problem with this. And the problem with this is that just because people, the truth is not democratic. The truth, yeah, do you understand? So if everyone voted that this tree was not here, it wouldn't change the fact that the tree is there. So, and we see examples in history of people as a society deciding to do things that are wrong. Let's take something that's not controversial. Go back to the Mayans who were sacrificing people for the sun god, and they were throwing their heads off of the you must have seen Apocalypto by what's his name, Mel Gibson. Yeah. That sort of society had decided this was the way to appease the god or whatever, and this was the way. This for them was a righteous path. Obviously, we would disagree with that. So, the consensus and the common sense within that society were not suitable barometers to a certain truth. So what I'm saying is that I appreciate what you're saying. Yes, there is a righteous path. And the things that in that path that you mentioned, I 100% I agree with you that those things are composite. They would comprise parts of that. But the problem really is, where do you get that? Where do you get this claim that this is the righteous path?
I can tell you that it's through my experience with God, but then that's subjective, and I don't want to go down that route.
Yeah.
So this is why I typically don't say that. This is why I typically just say common sense, and I then ask you to maybe prove one of those things wrong, and then we can have a discussion about it. I'm not here to prove anything right or wrong. I'm just here to have a discussion.
But this is what I mean. So if the whole point here is that it's a personal thing. It's like you said, it's a subjective thing. I've had experiences with God, and this is my subjective position. Then that's fine for you. You can go and do whatever you want. The point it becomes an issue is where you then say to anybody else. So the guy that comes and has all the opposite views of what you call the righteous path, but his label righteous path contains those things that are opposite to what you say. On what basis are you saying it? So we established common sense, democratization, and even subjective experience are not sufficient.
No, but this is the issue that Muslims tend to do. They tend to come here and they tend to push Islam. When you're coming here to push Islam, you are trying to recruit numbers. When you're recruiting numbers, you're not recruiting for quality, you're recruiting for quantity. I just had a conversation with someone just a few minutes ago where one of the Muslim kids was running around with his camera in his hand, shouting at everyone else, just going, ah! I'm like, okay, don't give dawah to people who are non-Muslim. You need to give it to that guy first. That guy needs dawah first, because he's obviously lost the message. Unless that is the message of Islam, that you could run around screaming in people's faces.
So again, what I would suggest is, I appreciate there are some kids that are running around with cameras doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but actually what we're trying to establish here, the thing that we're trying to... So let me just be devil's advocate. If that person said to you, the righteous path, in my opinion, you're going to change your mask.
Yeah, it might as well. If you're devil's advocate, so shall I.
So I'm just going to give you a position. Yeah. So if I hope you don't think I'm being disingenuous.
It's okay.
I'm trying to get to the fundamentals. So if you think that if that person is doing something wrong, and they're not following the righteous path, if that's your position, then you need to have a way of establishing what the righteous path is.
Yeah, but the thing is this: if we go back to a source, which is what you're going to claim,
we need to have a source,
and you're going to claim that the Quran is your source, and
no, before that, and immediately one of the things you've done is you've got into specifically about a religion thing.
No, because that was the whole point of our conversation originally.
I understand.
The fact that you've gone into this
is
got nothing to do with the original question I posed to you.
I understand. I hear what you're saying. What I'm trying to say is that even before we get to the stage of establishing whether the specifics of any particular path are correct, do you understand what the point I'm making?
No.
I'm taking it a step back. I'm making it no problem. I'm making it more fundamental. So what I would do if I was trying to establish the way for truth or not truth, I need to ground that in something that isn't me, that isn't the society, and is something beyond that. I have to do that. Why do I have to do that? Because we've established that you can't democratize truth. We've established that common sense doesn't prevail, and we've established that there are people that do things that could be completely wrong, and they think that might be the righteous path for them. So for me to be able to then say to them, you're wrong, I'm doing two things. First, I'm making a judgment based upon some sort of metric. So I need to establish what that metric is. And then I've got to give on what basis of that metric I'm bringing forward. Now, I'm not talking about any religion here, I'm just talking about basic principles. We can come to the religion in a bit. But for me, when we had that discussion online, there was a disconnect between wonderful, you're following the righteous path. I love the concepts that you bring forward, no problem. I don't have any issues with those. The issue was, if it's something that's common sense that's coming from yourself, someone else can make the same claim. They can make the same claim, but then how would I, as a third person, distinguish between you two, which is actually the righteous path? So how would you go about?
I get this question asked a lot. They say, how do you know that the worldly path or the self-worship path is bad? So greed. Do you think greed ever leads to fulfillment?
So you've gone into the specifics again.
No, because you've asked me a question. How do you determine? So this is how I determine using common sense.
All right.
Greed, lust, attachment, pride, and anger, they don't lead to anything but more pain.
Okay.
Whereas truth, love, compassion, contentment, humility, that leads to a fulfillment within oneself that you are then able to connect with God. If you don't have that fulfillment, if you're saying that you can get fulfilled from lust, anger, greed, attachment, and pride, then that may be you. This is a funny thing. God gave everyone free will, so you're allowed to choose what you want. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'll just say that there's a better path. And if you choose to go down your path that you believe is 100% right, that's your choice. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything.
And this is the point that I'm making. So, in your example, the thing that seems to be the purpose of the path is fulfillment. And you've said, and then you actually give, and I'm sure you appreciate this. You've given some criteria for determining, actually, how do you know something is the right path? You gave criteria, and the criteria were, you pointed at pain, you pointed at happiness, etc. These things. So these make an assumption. There's an assumption underlying these claims, i.e. that the way to have the righteous path is a path of self-fulfillment, which is based upon happiness and etc. 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 Do you understand? Do you follow that, or do I explain that again for you?
Explain it again, because I don't think it's self-fulfillment. It's more of a, because with humility and contentment, you're not chasing things. You're trying to work on yourself consistently, and you're trying to be appreciative of what you already have.
Yeah.
So it's not being a chasing of self-fulfillment. It's more of a understanding of reality, and then accepting reality and being able to grow from it.
Which reality are you talking about?
Life. How many realities do you think there are?
No, I'm just saying, because you're talking, because the things you're talking about are sort of abstract things like humility and
because
happiness.
We're talking about stuff that I didn't even want to come into today. The fact I came here to talk to you was about what I originally posed a question to
I
you
understand.
about. And now we're talking about my beliefs rather than your beliefs.
No, we haven't. I'm not trying to trap you. That's not my aim, Damon.
Unfortunately, this is a common thing that happens here when I'm trying to talk to someone and question them, especially Muslims. Instead of answering the question directly, they will try and flip it back to me and say, no, what's your